can you think of one woman, maybe Meryl Streep, maybe, who like gets away with their body not being constantly torn apart? And when she was younger, no, still torn apart. But like, that's the job. So you've signed on for that. So how do you sign on for that and do it with a level of ethics and integrity and don't end up fueling all of these toxic standards further? I think there's very few people who do that.
Agreed. The Chadwick Boseman thing also just makes me wonder, like, what is the right way for actors or performers to talk about their bodies, you know? Like, if your body does change, is it better to address it, to not address it?
That is a really interesting question.
Because it's hard to be a person with a body these days when bonkers TikTok diets are all the rage. And why are the seats so damn small on the airplane? Because it's hard to be a person with a body these days.
You're listening to Burnt Toast. I'm Virginia Soul-Smith.
I'm Corinne Fay.
Today, we are going to talk about a subject many of you have asked about, and honestly, I think we've been resistant to talking about, but it is time. We are going to discuss Ariana Grande and the rise of extreme thinness in Hollywood. This part of the episode is free for everyone to listen to.
And then stay tuned for our new bonus segment, Indulgence Gospel. This week, we're discussing supplements, and I'll be doing a taste test of moon juice.
I mean, I can't wait for this. Indulgence Gospel segments are a perk for paid subscribers. So if that's not you, click the link in your episode description or go to burnttoastpodcast.com to join us. Okay, we got to do it. We got to talk about the super, super skinny people.
Yeah. Before we completely dive into the Ariana of it all, we should just talk a little bit about the conversation about the thin women.
We're zooming way out here for a second. Yes, there's this sentiment that always arises from many different corners, but there's always this sentiment of don't talk about other women's bodies.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is advice we give, right? Like when someone's like, I think my friend wants me to comment on her weight loss. Or, you know, when, like, I get mistaken for pregnant, like, our general advice as humans interacting with other humans face-to-face is that we don't comment on people's bodies. I teach my kids that. Like, that is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
However, this is different.
I think what's different is that we're not critiquing these people's bodies. We're kind of talking about the larger system that exists, and we're talking about the conversation around extreme thinness.
I will own it's a gray area and it gets messy. I think it's very hard to say we want to talk about extreme thinness. Here are examples of extremely thin women and not be talking about how extremely thin they are. Like, we are talking about their bodies.
Yeah.
Because their bodies are symbolic of this larger issue.
Yeah.
But I also think the don't talk about women's bodies argument is often made by people who have something to gain from the system staying in place and from the system not being critiqued. It's similar to women shouldn't tear down other women, which is an argument that gets used when, for example, people write critiques of momfluencer culture or of conservative women. You know, like, you're not supposed to go after Erica Kirk because it's women tearing down other women. Like, no, I'm fine with that. We can go after her. So I think often that argument gets co-opted by people trying to keep the system in place and trying to prevent us from having these conversations about how dangerous these systems are.
I also think this one is maybe a little particularly touchy because Ariana has spoken in the past about not wanting people to talk about her body.
Right.
And I think it's hard when someone makes themselves vulnerable in that way to do something different. But again, like, I don't feel like what we're doing is really talking about Ariana's body as much as just talking about the water that we're swimming in.
And the reality is any public figure is using their body as part of their performance, and we can critique the performance that they're engaging in because that's like their art, their brand. Like, that's a different thing to what Ariana's body is when she's at home in her PJs. Like, I don't know that. I have no opinion on that. We don't see that. But we see what she's performing with her body. And so, yes, while I do feel mixed about, okay, she said she doesn't want people to talk about her body, she's also continuing to exist in the public eye. She's continuing to use her body for art and for profit and to participate in what is a really bad system. So I think we have to talk about the complicity piece.
Yeah, I feel complicated about that.
Okay.
I think there's like an unfair standard for women around being role models.
That's a good point.
There's a way in which we ask like women who are performers, particularly like young women, to like not only be good at their job, which is like singing or whatever for Ariana, but also to like be good, you know, to like be someone that people look up to. And I don't think we do the same thing for men.
No, we sure don't. We sure don't.
It's really complicated.
Okay, so we're going into this feeling complicated.
For sure,
and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we're naming that. And yeah, I admit I've avoided writing about her. We'll link to the piece I wrote about Wicked bodies when Wicked first came out and this whole thing started, which was like 2 years ago at this point. I admit I kind of avoid this conversation because I'm just like, what is there to say? Like, yes, we are seeing someone who is participating in patriarchal, toxic beauty standards because it is demanded of them by the industry they're in. We are likely seeing someone struggling with a mental health condition. I can't say that definitively, but it's hard to draw other conclusions at this point. And it's really sad. I think some of the like pushback of don't talk about people's bodies is because there's an assumption if you're doing that, it's with this kind of mean girl attitude. We can link to a great TikTok that Kim found that was talking about like, there's this vibe of you must be taking pleasure in how skinny they are. And this is just like sad fat ladies skinny shaming hot girls. Like that kind of critique. And that I really, really don't think is what we're doing at this point.
I think part of the reason that this topic is hard to talk about is because it is like, I hate to use the word, but it is just like triggering. It's sad and it's complicated. It's like, I would rather not. I would rather not.
Would rather not. Yes. And unfortunately, it also seems hard to get the discourse to go beyond this, to go beyond activists, like people in our world saying, hey, we're looking at something really uncomfortable and toxic here. But then on the flip side, the mainstream media, like the paparazzi, like what you see in like the Daily Mail, whatever, like they'll either lean into it in a salacious way, like, oh my God, is she okay? She's a skeleton. Or they'll be like, Demi Moore showed up with her amazing arms on the red carpet and totally celebrate the extreme thinness. So that way of talking about women's bodies is incredibly unhelpful because you're just either leaning into the salacious, like, oh God, look how sick she is, but not asking for any change or doing anything about it. And yes, invading their privacy at that point, or they're celebrating it. And that's reinforcing the whole thing. So it feels extra frustrating to try to have a nuanced conversation about this because it's really an example of how entrenched this stuff is and how hard it is to move the needle on making any change here.
Yeah, I do think that's part of why it's hard. It's hard to feel like the conversation is productive, you know? It's a frustrating situation to be in, like watching someone wondering what's going on, not knowing, not having any ability to do anything really. I think the thing I keep coming back to also is just like the parallels between like what people observe and then imply about fat bodies and what people observe and then imply about like really thin bodies. I feel like as fat people, as fat activists, we don't want people to look at us and assume things about us that we, you know, only eat fast food, never have exercised in our lives, have
that time you ever lifted 300 pounds. Yeah.
X, Y, and Z chronic illnesses. And I do feel like to a certain extent, if we don't want people to do that to us, we have to like apply that to everyone a little bit, you know? Like we see these super thin people, we don't know what's happening. We don't know if they're taking Ozempic. We don't know if they're in treatment for a serious illness. We don't know if they have an eating disorder. It's impossible to know. All we know is like, wow, people are really thin. And it's kind of alarming to see.
And thin in ways that like haven't been their baseline thinness. Like you're always seeing the before and after photos and the way that they've had these dramatic drops.
I do think the before and after of it all, that is really bumming me out.
Yeah.
Could we shift the conversation from like, don't talk about women's bodies to just don't do before and afters?
Oh my God. Cosign. Happily banned before and afters. They
so
serve
crazy.
nobody ever.
Yeah.
Bodies change. That's normal. These changes may not be normal, but you're right. We don't know what we're seeing. And yet, at the same time, you know, research on weight and health does show that folks at the extremes of both ends of the BMI scale, like the highest level and the lowest level, have the highest mortality rates. I'm not going to say it's definitive. I don't think there's ever anything definitive you can say about weight and health. It's such a nuanced conversation. But it is true that folks in this, like, you know, quote, a super underweight category, like they don't have reserves. They don't have reserves to fight off illness. There's ways that their bodies are struggling. And you're right that I can't say definitively that these people's bodies are struggling, but we like, I don't know. Am I making it worse?
I don't know. I just find it very hard to look at these photos. But I would hate to hear someone saying that about a fat person. You know?
I think that's an uncomfortableness we just have to sit with. Yeah, that's true.
I think it's also true that, like, so many people who have eating disorders don't look like Ariana.
Yes. I mean, it's absolutely maddening that anorexia nervosa is a relatively rare diagnosis because one of the diagnostic criteria is having a very low BMI.
Yeah.
And most people with eating disorders don't get that skinny. Not because they aren't super sick, but just because their bodies hold on to the weight more. Their bodies are fighting for their lives and don't lose as much weight. And so all of those people get dumped into atypical anorexia as the diagnosis, which is actually the typical anorexia. Like it's the far more common eating disorder. So it's a really weird and fat-phobic way of defining eating disorders that is super problematic. And I hope at some point they change it and realize they should not be grading severity of eating disorder based on weight, period, full sentence. They should be grading it based on severity of symptoms and distress and a person's ability to function in their life and all those sorts of things. And you can be very, very sick and still be in a fat body or in an any size body. And I think one of my biggest concerns about the whole extreme thinness conversation is that it reinforces the idea that eating disorders only look like Ariana Grande. And so then that normalizes what everyone else is doing, and it lets people who are engaging in dieting, disordered eating, full eating disorders, anywhere in that other area, it's like, well, I'm not Ariana Grande. Like, I don't have that problem, you know, so I must be fine. This must be fine. And that's actively causing harm. That's preventing people getting help.
Yeah. And for me, this is connected to the, like, concern trolling kind of stuff, because it's like you're looking at this one person and making an assumption about what's going on with them, and that assumption never gets made about other people. And it gets made in like a different way to people in like differently shaped bodies. It's just so aggravating.
Yeah, it's weird that the system is simultaneously upholding extreme thinness as this ideal while fear-mongering around it, while like there's this weird double standard. And as much as I critique Ariana for some of her messaging around this, like I actually don't think when most of your fans are tween girls, it is responsible for you to say, no, I'm healthy. Like I think she's gaslighting her fans to some extent. I have compassion for whatever her struggle is, a lot of empathy for that. And I wish there were more responsible people around her guiding her public messaging, because her public messaging, I think, has been pretty harmful to her fan base. But I also have empathy with, like, you can't win. You can't get it right. As a public woman in Hollywood, there is no way for you to have a body that isn't critiqued and pulled apart and decided it's too thin or too fat or too old or too whatever. So
yeah. Sometimes I feel like the extreme thinness, eating disorder, and like fatness are just two sides of the same coin. But
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you about her personal messaging. And I think the conversation is complicated a bit just about her history, the fact that we know she's had an eating disorder. You can find like her early, like, I mean, she must have been like a teen, you know, kind of like eating disorder-y Tumblr posts. Like,
I
it's
didn't know
out
that.
there. Yeah. It's definitely a known factor.
Yeah,
And
this is a long struggle for her.
It's just hard to know how a person should act in that situation.
Yeah. We don't know what treatment she's tried. Eating disorder treatment is, I mean, she has every resource, of course. Like, she can access high-quality care, but it's a very difficult mental illness to treat. There's a lot of relapses, a lot of, like, what does recovery even look like for a lot of folks?
Yeah.
You know, it's not an easy road at all. And I do worry that when we talk about, like, how does this conversation even begin to change, I'm not saying who, but I feel like there has to be a tragedy, like a public tragedy, like a Karen Carpenter situation, before any mainstream conversations really go anywhere with this. On the other hand, Karen Carpenter did die of an eating disorder, and here we are 40 years later, nothing's changed. So it's only worse. So maybe that won't even help. That'll just be tragic and terrible.
Basically, all I know about Karen Carpenter is that she died of causes related to eating disorder. But if there was some kind of public event, I don't know what it was. Or do I?
No, I mean, it is just that she's known to have died of an eating disorder.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's the whole thing. And it's sad because, like, her fame is very much reduced to her mental health condition when she was a talented musician and probably capable of many great things and didn't get help and was caught in a vicious cycle at a time when women had even less agency over our bodies than we have now. So, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't working as a diet culture critic back then. My understanding is that she was seen as an outlier and a rarity at that point versus I do think there is now depressingly more of a general understanding that most people who work in Hollywood and have to be public in this way are living with some kind of functional eating disorder. I was thinking about this watching Hacks, like Deborah Vance makes lots of jokes about her anorexia and just like, yes, of course, I've been an anorexic for 60 years. Like, that's how I'm a woman in this business. Like, what do you expect? And like, on the one hand, I love the like honesty of it. And on the other hand, it's like chilling.
I feel like it's maybe telling that the kind of return of Ariana's extreme thinness or the rise of it, I don't really know well enough.
The onward trajectory. Well, it was like there was Wicked 2, and now she's on this new tour.
Right.
And every time she comes back in the public eye, people are like newly shocked by.
Right. But I almost feel like it started with her like being involved with Wicked and like Hollywood versus.
Yeah. And
just
Cynthia
being
Erivo was also extremely thin. And the two of them together were such a shocking image. Very much so. Yeah, I mean, should we talk about other, because it isn't just Ariana. There's a lot of other folks who are showing up more extremely thin. Demi Moore is definitely one. And that's so heartbreaking because she made that speech at that awards show where she talked about the pressure that women are under.
Yeah.
And how this was her like claiming that she could say no to that pressure. And then you just see her getting smaller and smaller. And it's like, how's that going? How's that pushing back against the standards?
I know.
But she says in the speech, she was like always told she was never good enough.
I know. Just heartbreaking. There was also the whole thing with Olivia Wilde's face.
Yeah, this was interesting. I missed this actually going viral. I learned about this when I read the piece by Natalie Riley, who writes the Substack, I Say This With Love. But I guess people seeing Olivia Wilde's face close up kind of freaked everyone out.
Yeah, it's like a red carpet interview.
Yeah.
And there was a particular like screenshot of it that was going around where she just looks, I think it's like a fisheye view and like she's wearing dark eyeliner. So like her eyes really look big.
This is depressing. I look at these photos and I'm just like, yeah, this is what Hollywood women look like. Like, I actually don't think it's extreme given where we are with the extremeness. I'm surprised that it triggered such an uprising.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? She is extremely thin in the photos, and she does look like very sunken cheeks and big eyes. But so many Hollywood women have to look like this now. I just was like, yeah, what? Of course, this is what she has to look like.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think there's a slightly like new level of thinness or returning to a level of thinness. Unfortunately, one thing that was very like kind of revealing to me was, did you read that Caroline Calloway piece in Byline?
I didn't read that one.
Okay, well, it's about Caroline Calloway getting on Ozempic or AGLP-1 to lose weight. This is someone who weighs, content warning for numbers, but she says them in the piece, that she weighed 130 pounds and put on ankle weights to get on the scale in order to be prescribed.
Oh, wow.
It's like, this has always existed. Diet culture has always existed. Our obsession with thinness has always existed. And what's changed is that there's more access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the increased access to it means there are more people in public looking extremely thin.
Right. Right. What I meant was I just didn't bump on Olivia compared to Ariana. Like, I just feel like I'm already inured to it a little bit.
Wow. Well, I was alarmed by that photo.
Yeah. No, it is alarming. I'm not saying it's not alarming. I'm saying
Well,
it's alarming that I was not
you think
immediately
it's normal.
alarmed. Yeah. It's alarming.
Yeah.
And in the Natalie Riley piece, she points out that one reason Olivia is a more startling representation of this is because so many actresses who have her same level of skinny body are using a lot of fillers to keep their faces like looking less gaunt. And so we're just kind of noting like, oh, this is like when you get extremely thin, like, yes, you do lose your cheeks and other people are paying to keep their cheeks. And that's not better, honestly. Like, it's just everyone's doing so much beauty labor, so much intensive beauty labor.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And again, like, part of me is just like, but when so-and-so male actor loses a bunch of weight for a role, like, are we alarmed?
Yeah. She notes Jacob dropped weight for a role in an Australian miniseries where he was playing a prisoner of war and showed up looking similarly, emaciated, and people did not have the same reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like, well, that's for art. I think that's right. I was also thinking about Chadwick Boseman, who I think people did have negative reactions when his body changed really dramatically. And then it was like, oh, don't you feel terrible? He actually had cancer and, died tragically young. And so that gets held up as an example of like, see, that's why you shouldn't talk about people's bodies.
Yeah.
Like, it's not wrong, again, but it also is throttling our ability to have a conversation about this larger insidious system. There is a double standard. And I still think when you are making your body a brand, unfortunately, the double standard is any woman who's choosing Hollywood or, music as their vehicle of celebrity is choosing to make their body a brand. That is the job requirement to be a woman in those industries. You can't do it without making your body. Like, can you think of one woman, maybe Meryl Streep, maybe, who like gets away with their body not being constantly torn apart? And when she was younger, no, still torn apart. But like, that's the job. So you've signed on for that. So how do you sign on for that and do it with a level of ethics and integrity and don't end up fueling all of these toxic standards further? I think there's very few people who do that.
Yeah, agreed. The Chadwick Boseman thing also just makes me wonder, like, what is the right way for actors or performers to talk about their bodies, Like, if your body does change, is it better to address it, to not address it?
That is a really interesting question. This is not at all the same, but when I saw the Indigo Girls recently,
yeah,
who I think we can agree are not participating in patriarchal beauty standards and never have, Emily has talked very openly ahead of this tour that her voice has changed a lot due to like various health conditions she has. I talked about this on the podcast. It made it such a more beautiful concert experience because everyone in the audience knew, and we were supporting her, and we were singing along with her. And, it took a huge amount of vulnerability and courage for her to share that with her fans.
Yeah.
And in doing so, the whole tour experience is so much more beautiful because we're a part of it with her. But I don't think that maps onto changes in weight in quite the same way.
Totally. And I also wonder, what the process of being public about that was like for her. Were people noticing the changes before she
I think so, because I saw them in
people,
2019 and she hadn't disclosed anything at that point. And it wasn't as extreme as it is now, but you could tell there were differences. And I do think probably people were like, why doesn't she sound as good? And, and that's crappy.
Yeah.
And so she's been contending with that. I mean, honestly, just don't be famous. Oh, God, what a terrible thing to do. It's truly awful.
Yeah.
That's one takeaway. I find it very depressing. I think we should also talk about what it triggers for those of us who are just watching this kind of thing. I feel like a lot of the time I'm able to distance myself. There's nothing about my life that is similar to Ariana Grande or Olivia Wilde. They are not people I'm aspiring to be. So it's not as black and white as oh, I admire this actress and I want to be skinny like her. It's not that one-to-one. But I do think it subtly gets into our brains in different ways as these images become more and more pronounced.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, the ways in which the extreme thinness and fatness are two sides of the same coin. I do think one big difference is that, we see lots of very famous, extremely thin people, and we see very few extremely famous, somewhat fat people.
That's a great point. Yes, it would be tempered if we were seeing more diversity across the board.
Yeah.
And instead, it's we're just seeing everything narrow and narrow.
Yeah, which I think is maybe just a good argument for getting off your phone, going outside, go to your public pool.
I did really appreciate what Liz Plank wrote in her Substack piece, What If We're Not Actually Worried About Ariana Grande? And she talks about what we really mean when we mean concern. She talks about how often what we're reacting to is how seeing Ariana or whichever thin celebrity is actually reminding us of our own struggles and our own maybe past history with this, which may be quite recent. She writes, when people dismiss reactions to this return of extreme thinness as overblown, they often fail to understand that for many women, these images are not really about Ariana Grande at all. They are looking at her, but they're remembering themselves. They're remembering the version of themselves that spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours trying to become smaller. That's why triggers can be so frightening. A recovering alcoholic doesn't walk into a bar and see what everyone else sees. They see a former life. I think that's true for many women looking at celebrity bodies right now. They aren't just seeing Ariana Grande, they're remembering calorie counts, skipped meals, the strange euphoria of hunger, et cetera, et cetera. They're seeing who they used to be and who they're afraid they might become again. I think that's true, and I think that's especially true for younger folks who Ariana is more of a peer, like Gen Z folks. I'm thinking about, again, her teen and tween audiences, that she feels like someone you grew up with and kind of maps onto your life in a certain way. And then you're seeing this and it is quite triggering. It brings up a lot about what you have maybe gone through yourself.
Yeah. What would you say to a younger person who is watching this happen? Or, maybe kind of watching this cycle, if we could call it a cycle, happen again?
I don't know how helpful this is, but I mean, we lived through this. The 90s was this.
Yeah.
Ariana Grande is their Britney Spears and their Kate Moss and their, Lindsay Lohan. I'm feeling so depressed about this conversation. I feel like I don't have a hopeful take, but I do feel like it's worth noting that we lived through this. We did briefly get to a place of baby steps of progress, of increased body diversity, and that shows we can get there again somehow. What would you say?
Maybe similar to what Liz Plank was saying in that Substack post. What looking at these photos brings up for me is just this is a person who's suffering. We don't know how, we don't know why. I think you could look at a picture of anyone and say that. You just truly never know what someone is struggling with. Like, it's clear there's some type of struggle going on, and that's not something to aspire to, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what we're always trying to sort out is like we can have compassion for these folks as individuals, and we can say like, this is a larger system I don't want to be a part of. This is something I want to opt out of. And what does that look like for me? How do I do my own opting out? Because it definitely doesn't serve anyone to emulate these behaviors or, strive for this. It's just overall a sad conversation. And I think, unfortunately, it is one we need to keep having, even though I always dread it. So I am interested to hear from listeners, like where you are with the stuff, what it's triggering and bringing up for you. Is there anything you've figured out that's helping you navigate the onslaught of these images or the pressures that you're feeling? Let's talk about it in the comments. And now let's bring it up by doing some butter.
Yeah. What's your butter?
My butter is a TV show that I feel like did not get a lot of attention, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's called The Seasons, and it has Tina Fey and Steve Carell in it.
Oh, yeah.
And Coleman Domingo.
I somehow discovered it like a month ago.
Same, but it's like 2 seasons in.
Yeah, yeah.
Where was this? Why did no one talk about the show when it first came out?
I don't know. I immediately called my mom because I was like, this is a perfect show for her. And she was like, oh, yeah, I already watched it.
She's like, well, I reached my demographic.
Yeah.
Jack and I are watching it right now. We love it.
It's super enjoyable.
Yeah.
Coleman Domingo, amazing wardrobe in that show.
Yes.
Every time he walks on screen, I'm like, hold on, take a screenshot.
Yes. His fashion is impeccable. I do vaguely remember seeing someone being like, oh, it's just a show about rich people on vacations being grumpy, which is kind of true. The premise is it's like you're following this group of friends like every time they meet up for a vacation.
But they're not like Succession rich.
No, well, I feel like the Steve Carell character kind of is. Like, he's
I guess you're right.
Money.
There's one rich guy.
The rest of them are just kind of like normal bougie rich, if that's a category. But I feel like it's really funny and articulates a lot about relationships and aging and friendship.
There's a lot about marriage.
Yeah. I'm just like really enjoying it. And there's sex and innuendo, but it's not graphic. Like, you definitely could watch this with kids, like, teenagers. I don't think younger kids would be interested. I don't know the teenagers would be interested. Everyone's very old in it. It's nice to find a comedy that's like, doesn't make you work too hard, but is still like sharp and funny enough.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's one of those shows you can watch and pay full attention to, or you can watch and like sort of be doing something else and still follow along.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really into it. So that's my butter right now. What about you?
My butter is American cheese.
Oh, that's a great butter.
I feel that American cheese gets a really bad rap. People are extremely snobby about it.
Yeah, myself included.
American cheese is freaking great for a few things.
Okay.
One thing, I think it's really good with eggs.
Yep.
It melts so easily.
Mm-hmm. That's its whole purpose.
I think it's also really good in a grilled cheese.
It's the grilled cheese.
Yeah, and so I just want to say my butter's American cheese.
I support you on that. I admit when we buy like sandwich stuff, I'm always like, oh, get sliced cheddar, get a provolone. And Jack always gets the American cheese as well. And I always end up eating it and being like, yeah, you're right. That's delicious.
Yeah, it's not always my favorite in a cold sandwich, but if it's getting heated up, it's going to be good.
If you're doing an egg sandwich.
Yes.
It's the way to go. And I feel like, having lived in New York City, bodega egg sandwiches, like bacon, egg, and cheese is always going to be American. And that's just like, don't mess with that. Don't bouge that up with some fancy cheese.
Yeah, if you put cheddar on the egg, sometimes it's like, gets a little like oily.
Yeah, it doesn't melt the same way. It's totally true. You're right. It's a great cheese.
Thank you.
We love a dairy butter.
Next up, we have Indulgence Gospel, our new bonus segment for paid subscribers. Today, Virginia and I are going to talk about supplements, what supplements we each take, and I am going to do a taste test of Moon Juice. Free list, you won't want to miss this. Click the link in your episode description or go to burnttoastpodcast.com to join us. You've been listening to Burnt Toast. If you'd like to support the show, follow us for free in your podcast player. And if you have a second, please leave a little note about why you love Burnt Toast. Your reviews really help new listeners find conversations like these.
The Burnt Toast podcast is hosted by Virginia Soulsmith and Corinne Fay. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads at @V_Soulsmith. Follow Corinne on Instagram at SelfieFay and on Patreon at Big Undies.
This podcast is produced by Kim Baldwin. You can follow Kim at The Blonde Mule on all platforms and subscribe to her newsletter at theblondemule.com. The Burnt Toast logo is by Deanna Lowe. Our theme music is by Faraday.
Our video editor is Elizabeth Ayiku, who also runs the Me Little Me Foundation, a virtual food pantry supporting multiply marginalized folks recovering from eating disorders. Learn more and donate at melittlemefoundation.org. And Tommy Heron is our audio engineer. Thanks for listening and for supporting anti-diet, body liberation journalism.